doing. It's just part of it. You know, there's entertainers and there's competitors. And I totally understand that. And my job is to compete. And that's what I'm focused on doing.
Dillon Gabriel just shook up the entire NFL conversation with one comment that went way further than he expected. What should have been a simple comparison between him and Shedeur Sanders has exploded into one of the most talked about controversies of the season. Gabriel didn't hold back. He flat out said Sanders isn't really a competitor, but more of an entertainer. He even put himself on a pedestal, claiming he's the true competitor while Shedeur is just putting on a show. That slick jab might have sounded confident in the moment, but it could end up costing Gabriel way more than he bargained for. Now the floodgates are wide open. Fans, analysts, and even other players are questioning Gabriel's real feelings towards Sanders. Was this just trash talk? Or is there some deeper tension brewing behind the scenes? Speculation is going crazy. And NFL insider G. Bush even threw a warning at Gabriel, saying when someone makes decisions like this, he should be ready for questions.
Disagree with you. I think he was taking a shot at Shedeur.
You think so?
When have we ever thought about the media, those beat writers as entertainers? We've heard his coach, he was on the team when he said they're celebs.
How's this going to play out inside the locker room? Could Gabriel's comment stir up bad blood with teammates, or could it push Shedeur Sanders to step up and silence every single hater? Nobody knows yet, but one thing is crystal clear. Gabriel's words lit a firestorm that's way too loud to ignore.
And he knows what follows Shedeur. Look, it can't be easy being in camp with Shedeur Sanders, right? But you can't be sitting here trolling your fellow rookie, because that's what it sounded like.
G. Bush wasted no time tearing into Dillon Gabriel for talking slick, and the sting hit even harder because Gabriel has always been praised for his insane ability to read the field. Bush reminded everyone that Gabriel's been hyped up as having almost Skynet-level processing speed, making lightning-fast decisions like a machine. Some even call him the Terminator when it comes to performing under pressure.
Because people are going to ask you questions. This is the reason I had to start going to practice.
But now, instead of showing that machine-like focus against top-tier opponents, Gabriel looks like he's picking a fight with Sanders' massive fan base. And that's a dangerous battle no playbook can save him from. G. Bush wasn't letting that slide and called him out heavy. And if that wasn't enough, Shannon Sharpe came swinging too. He refused to let anyone sugarcoat it. Sharpe said too many folks are twisting Gabriel's words to defend him, when in reality, his comment was exactly as reckless as it sounded. Gabriel's statement wasn't some slip of the tongue. It was sharp, deliberate, and no amount of backpedaling is going to erase that. To prove his point, Shannon Sharpe dragged up a moment from last season when Oregon's head coach fired shots at Colorado using the exact same tone and language. And who was standing right in the middle of that drama? None other than Dillon Gabriel, who just so happened to be Oregon's quarterback at the time. For Sharpe, this ain't random. It's a pattern. He argued that Gabriel always seems tied to narratives that either downplay or flat out disrespect Shedeur Sanders. Whether he means to or not, his name keeps circling back into these messy storylines. And now, by labeling Shedeur as an entertainer instead of a competitor, Gabriel threw himself right back into the fire of controversy. Sharpe's message was clear. You can't have it both ways. If you're bold enough to talk like this, you better be bold enough to handle the backlash. He even told folks to listen closely to what Oregon's coach once said about Colorado, because the energy is way too familiar.
When it comes to being a supercomputer, he was only second to Skynet in the Terminator series. He is now capable of sending Terminators backwards and forward through time, waging a war with the Shedeur Sanders fans.
But while Sharpe came heavy, Chad Ochochinco Johnson stepped in with a softer take. He didn't exactly defend Gabriel's words, but he suggested maybe people are digging too deep into it. Ocho argued that Gabriel, fresh out of college and just trying to survive the NFL spotlight, probably wouldn't intentionally try to stir beef with a potential teammate or create locker room division. In his eyes, it just doesn't make sense for a young QB trying to build his name to willingly jeopardize team chemistry. When the dust finally cleared, there was no denying who really owned the field: Shedeur Sanders. His debut spoke louder than words, calm, confident, and locked in from the very first snap. Every play he made felt like proof that the hype was real, showing that icy composure under pressure and delivering right when it counted most. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel looked completely out of rhythm. He couldn't find the end zone, couldn't get momentum rolling, and even with a first-team defense backing him, his mistakes stood out more than anything else. No touchdowns, no highlight completions, nothing to make fans believe he was ready to snatch the spotlight. What left people scratching their heads even more was his response afterward. Instead of showing humility after a rough outing, Gabriel doubled down and took another swipe at Shedeur, dismissing him as just an entertainer at best. That attitude had folks questioning whether Gabriel was blinded by pride. Things got so shaky that even head coach Kevin Stefanski had to address it with the media before the game. At first, Stefanski tried to keep it positive, stressing the Browns were in a good place overall. But when pressed, he couldn't dodge the obvious: Gabriel's struggles. Stefanski admitted that 2 brutal turnovers, both coming straight from Gabriel's decisions, completely wrecked the rhythm of the matchup. Those mistakes didn't just stall drives, they flipped the momentum so bad the team couldn't recover. And coming from Stefanski, a coach who usually plays it cool with criticism, that raw honesty spoke volumes. By this point, it was clear. Dillon Gabriel's performance had slipped to a level the Browns just couldn't ignore anymore. And yet, despite Gabriel's shaky night under center, Cleveland still found a way to walk out with the win.
The entertainers and a competitor, and he's a competitor, and he wasn't taking a shot at Shedeur, but the damage was done. Everybody knows what he meant by that, because you know why? And I'm gonna let you take off. You remember at Oregon what the head coach said when they played Colorado?
Right.
Who was the quarterback?
Yeah.
Who was the quarterback?
Okay.
But let's be real, the offense had nothing to do with it. The defense straight up saved the game. The turning point came in the third quarter when KJ Henry read the play like a book, jumped the route, and snatched an interception. He ran back 45 yards to the house. That defensive touchdown completely flipped the vibe in Cleveland's favor and locked in a 22-13 preseason victory over the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a powerful reminder that even though quarterbacks hog the spotlight, football is still the ultimate team game. When one side slips, the other has to step up. And that night, Cleveland's defense answered the call big time. They carried the team, covered for Gabriel's blunders, and made sure the W didn't slip away. But here's the kicker. Gabriel's remarks about Shedeur Sanders might go down as one of the worst timed shots of the entire preseason. Calling Sanders an entertainer instead of a competitor would have already raised eyebrows. But saying it after his own ugly outing only made the backlash explode louder. The fallout didn't stop there, because once Gabriel's words spread, the reactions started pouring in from every corner of the league. Fans weren't just disappointed, they were outraged, blasting him on social media for throwing shade at Shedeur Sanders after such a lackluster performance. How you gonna call someone an entertainer when you couldn't even get in the end zone? One fan wrote, racking up thousands of likes. Analysts weren't any kinder. Several pointed out the irony that Gabriel, who had been hyped as the future of the Browns, was suddenly looking more like a liability than a leader. Some even questioned if his mental toughness was built for the NFL grind, especially if he's more focused on taking verbal shots than correcting his own mistakes. Inside the locker room, whispers started growing louder too. Teammates reportedly weren't thrilled that instead of taking accountability, Gabriel added fuel to the fire by disrespecting another quarterback. That kind of attitude can spread fast, and in a league where chemistry is everything, it's the last thing the Browns need heading into the season. As one commentator bluntly put it, this isn't just about a bad game, it's about a young quarterback showing his priorities, and right now, they look all wrong. As the backlash snowballed, the spotlight shifted to how Shedeur Sanders himself might respond. Up to this point, Sanders had kept it cool, letting his performance on the field speak louder than any words could.
Well, listen, I don't. Hey, Chad, I don't want to do him like that. I'm gonna give Dillon Gabriel a little grace, a little understanding, because I don't think a college kid coming in as a rookie in the NFL would take that kind of shot at a teammate that he's competing with for a job.
But insiders claim that behind closed doors, Shedeur wasn't brushing it off so lightly. One source said Sanders felt straight up disrespected, especially since he had already silenced plenty of critics with his preseason debut. Reporters immediately started chasing the story, speculating whether Sanders would fire back publicly or just keep stacking highlights to make Gabriel's jab look even weaker. And the media frenzy only grew when former players jumped in, saying moments like this can define a young QB's reputation for years. At the same time, tension inside the Browns' locker room continued to bubble. Some veterans reportedly questioned if Gabriel had lost sight of the bigger picture, winning games. Others worried his comments created unnecessary drama that could fracture team focus right when they needed unity the most. One analyst summed it up best. Gabriel thought he was making a statement about Sanders, but what he really did was reveal a crack in his own image. And in this league, that can be fatal for a career. When the cameras finally caught up with Shedeur Sanders, the energy was tense. Reporters pressed him hard, asking if he had anything to say about Gabriel calling him an entertainer. And while Sanders didn't explode the way some expected, his response still carried weight. He simply smirked and said, "I'll let my game do the talking." That one line was enough to send social media into a frenzy, with fans praising him for staying cool while still throwing shade without even trying. But not everyone saw it as calm composure. Some critics argued Sanders' silence was actually scarier for Gabriel because it meant he was plotting his revenge on the field instead of wasting words in interviews. Former pros quickly chimed in, saying that if Sanders comes out and dominates again, Gabriel's comments will look even more foolish in hindsight. Meanwhile, Gabriel found himself under even more pressure. Teammates, analysts, and fans were all watching closely to see how he'd bounce back after creating so much drama. Instead of focusing on his own mistakes, he had shifted the conversation onto a player who wasn't even in his locker room, and that rubbed people the wrong way. As one insider put it, Shedeur doesn't even have to clap back. Every snap he takes is the clap back. Gabriel just gave him free fuel, and that's dangerous.
Two giveaways really were the difference there in that first half, because I thought we were doing some really good things, but then we got that takeaway, had a takeaway negated by an offsides.
By the time Gabriel finally addressed the backlash, the damage was already done. Reporters cornered him after practice, and instead of offering a real apology, he tried to brush it off, claiming his words were taken out of context. But fans weren't buying it. Clips of the interview went viral instantly, with people pointing out that his tone left no room for misinterpretation. He meant exactly what he said. Analysts jumped in too, stressing that Gabriel's biggest mistake wasn't just the jab at Shedeur Sanders, but the timing. One former QB put it bluntly, "If you're coming off a weak performance, you don't get to talk down on the guy who just delivered under pressure. That's rule number one in this game." Meanwhile, support for Shedeur only grew stronger. Players across the league began tweeting in his favor, praising the way he carried himself and warning Gabriel not to underestimate the spotlight Sanders commands. Some even hinted that Shedeur could use this whole controversy as motivation to step into the season on fire. What was supposed to be Gabriel's breakout preseason moment had flipped on its head. Instead of headlines about his future as Cleveland's quarterback, all anyone could talk about was his questionable judgment and how badly he underestimated the power of Sanders' name. The irony here is just too wild to ignore. Shedeur Sanders came in cool, efficient, and commanding the field, while Dillon Gabriel stumbled, tossing two brutal turnovers and failing to put points on the board. And instead of humbly owning up to his mistakes, Gabriel acted like he was somehow above the very man who outshined him. And that's what really poured gasoline on this firestorm. Analysts like Shannon Sharp wasted no time pointing out this wasn't some one-off moment either. He reminded fans of the clear parallels to Oregon's shot at Colorado last season, once again with Shedeur Sanders caught right at the center of the storm. So tell me, what's your take on Gabriel's comments? Do you think he crossed a line, or is this just preseason drama blown out of proportion? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share this video, because trust me, this saga is only getting messier. Catch you on the next one.